Welcome to the Finding the Magic podcast, where books come alive. I'm Tricia Copeland, a fiction author and host of this show. If you love books, finding great reads, and hearing about the story behind the story directly from the authors, this is the place for you. Whether you like fantasy, science fiction, dystopian, or romance titles, I think you'll find something to love in my playlist. Listen in to discover something magical about a book or two today.
Welcome, Seth.
Yeah, well, thank you. Glad to be here.
Well, thank you for being here. Today we have author Seth Voorhees. He is a dark fiction author, and I'm super excited to jump in because I have a virus pandemic-y book too. So I can't wait to learn all about yours. Immune is one of the books that you have out. Set us up. What is this about?
So, like you said, it's a virus book, dystopian. So it mixes a bunch of things. So my biggest twist with this is there is a little bit of a zombie aspect in it, but the twist is that they come out of the zombie aspect and they remember everything that happened. And eventually through the book, two classes are developed. There's the immune, who are A positive, and those who are A positive blood type are totally immune from the whole virus. They don't get it at all. And then there's the infected, or inflicted is what I decide to call them in the book. And they basically, like I said, they get the virus, they die, they become zombies. They come back though, and they remember everything. And so then their class rebuilds society. And so there's just this constant class struggle between the two of them, and who basically can get the world out of darkness the fastest. A lot of clash.
Interesting. So when does the book start? Does it start when these inflicted people are coming out of the quote unquote zombie virus state, or does it start before that?
No, it starts, the main character is White Tuck. It starts with him. He works in like a residential center, and it's basically picking up right when the virus is starting to get going, and he loses his job. And it just takes the book takes you through kind of the stages of how it develops into that. So the zombie part's more in the middle. It's only a brief part of the book. I didn't want it to be the whole novel. I wanted to incorporate other things.
Right. So Wyatt, what's his main goal throughout this story?
So his main goal is just pretty much survival. But also so he is immune, so he's A positive. Okay. So he's also trying to keep family members who are not immune safe. So they're just going through the world, and eventually they run into paths with a few inflicted as well. I don't want to give up too much, but they run into one character. Her name is Helen Olsen. She's a secondary character. She's inflicted, and she's actually, when you read the story as a character, you can tell I kind of fell in love with, because she kind of takes over the book for quite a while, which was fun.
And is it written in third person or first person?
Yes, third person.
A third person perspective. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And did you do a lot of research, or do you have a biology background, or how did you navigate that?
No, I had to wind up doing a little bit of research, because I had no idea really. How it originally first started wasn't even a virus book. It was just about, it was supposed to be a zombie book. Is when I first got the idea was remember when The Walking Dead and Fear the Walking Dead were like at its height.
Right.
And I was just sitting there thinking, I'd really like to write one, but I didn't want to write a story because everyone was writing them at that point in time. So it's like, I want to do something a little bit different. So that's how it originally started. And then I eventually incorporated the virus aspect later. But I did have to do research a little bit.
I got obsessed with zombies watching iZombie. I don't know if you ever watched that series.
I don't think I've seen that one.
Okay, yeah, it was a Netflix series, and basically, it's a virus. They get infected, and the main character is a doctor, but she decides, okay, well, I can't do normal doctor stuff, so I'm going to go work in a morgue. And but then whatever brain she eats, she gets that person's memories, so she can solve the crime of how they were killed, right? But it goes on for several seasons, so I got on the zombie craze for a while.
Yeah, I understand.
We all did, right? Yeah. I think it's coming back.
It is, though I was disappointed, since we're talking about zombies, with I Am Legend, when it was zombies. I wish it would have stuck with vampires like in the book, but it was good. Yeah.
And is this a standalone book, or do you think
Yes,
there's
it is.
a sequel coming, or those characters are good, they're happily ever after-ish?
No, I've definitely left it open for a sequel. I've played around with some ideas and some thoughts. I thought with the sequel it would probably be with Helen, just because of the way her story arc took place in the book and how there's just a lot more avenues, I think, if I go that direction. But I've yet to really sit down and write it. I've had some scenes here and there, but nothing too concrete. I don't want to write just to write it. I want to wait till an idea actually festers in my brain and won't let go. You know how that is.
Right, yeah. And what are some major themes in the book? Because you talked about the kind of the clash between these two groups of people. How did you come up with that, or how did you shape that?
Oh, so what really took part too was I just was always, so I'm a sociology major, so I just love that whole idea of, how we interact, and that social psychology aspect of how we treat each other and how things can go off the rails, but yet, we have our values and we want to keep our morals, and how do we maintain ourselves in the whole grand scheme of things, especially when the world's falling apart. Like Wyatt, sorry, he I do put in there that he's sober, and so he's trying to maintain his spirituality and the positivity while all of this is going on. So I do touch on that a little bit. Also, too, with Helen, her partner is named Tamara, and I just thought it'd be interesting. So they go back and forth with having to hide each other. Like Tamara's immune, and she hides Helen, while the immune kind of have control, and so she has to hide her to keep anyone from finding her, and then eventually the inflicted take over, and then the roles are reversed. Helen has to hide Tamara while also having a high end job in the government, and so basically she's doing double roles of, I have to have war against the immune, but yet I'm hiding my partner
Oh, yeah.
in the house and can't let anyone know. So I just wanted to go through a lot of that morality aspect with the characters.
Those are so nuanced and so hard to think about. Like, usually when I start thinking about things like that, my brain overloads, and then I'm like, I can't do it anymore. So I always applaud people that, like really dig into those issues and themes, because then I go down a rabbit hole and I get depressed and I have to leave.
No, I understand. And I had a secondary character too. He kind of goes down the terrorist aspect where they want to fight the immune or the inflicted. Sorry.
Right.
Mm.
Wow.
Yeah, just a lot of back and forth. I had to tone it down a little bit because I was like, oh, I could be writing too much if I don't stop.
And if you're putting this on a PG to an R scale, where would you put this?
I would probably, it's probably R, though I would say it's PG-13. Probably depends on who you're talking to. I feel is most appropriate answer, but I'd say it probably leans a little more towards R, just because once you get to the killing zombie part, that gets a
little graphic there.
A little crazy. Yeah, I try not to get too graphic though.
Okay. Interesting. And I saw in the other book that kind of caught my attention was Interim. And this seems a little more spooky, kind of horror-ish. Tell us about that one.
Yes, that one is straight horror. So the original concept was I just wanted to come up with a book kind of based on the 12 days of Christmas, but I turned it on the 12 days of Halloween. And that was the original idea. So I just kind of created this story of a town that was cursed, and it's in South Dakota. And eventually, then it developed into the main story. So basically, it's about a town in South Dakota where for 12 days out of the year, they're cursed by an entity named Leopold. And he basically will manipulate everyone and anything to get out of the house so he can destroy them. So the question that came to my mind was, what would you be willing to put up with to live in a town that had that issue? Because the obvious thought would be, well, if that happens for 12 days out of the year, why live there?
Right? Yeah, just don't live there.
Yeah, just leave. So
or can you leave for 12 days or no, you can't?
Right. No one does. But so what I decided to do was, well, because there's those 12 days and it's guided by certain rules of a past mayor that's 100 years old, and you find out his ties to the whole curse eventually in the story. But the reason they put up with it is because then the rest of the year is perfect peace. Like there's no crime, there's no anything. So it kind of becomes, are you willing to stay in your house for 12 straight days, putting up with this strangeness and having to follow certain rules in order to live the rest of your life in perfect peace and happiness? Are you willing to put up with that? So that
Right.
became kind of the theme. And so it is about that. And then several youth, high school age, who eventually get together and they just have had enough, and then they try to fight the monster and they discover why it's cursing their town, all that reasons.
That sounds neat. Yeah, I mean, after 2020, we could all live for 12 days inside
Right?
our house, right?
Yeah, for
But
sure.
before that point, we would have said, no, that would be horrible. We
Yeah.
can't do that.
Right. And that one's on a second edition right now. The original edition was published in 2017. It was through Archway Publishing, but I wound up getting the rights back and I republished it. But that one is straight horror. That one is rated R.
Okay.
Yeah. I try not to get too bad just because in my field of residential, I know a lot of youth who are teenage age, obviously, because I work that age range, 10 to 19. So I try to keep it toned down enough to where they're able to read it.
Okay.
Because when they know you, they're like, oh, I need to read his book. And it's like, okay, well, I can't make it too bad then.
Right. Well, it's interesting that but who are the main characters in the book? What age are the main characters?
I believe I have them all to be 16.
Okay.
16,
So it is
17.
kind of a YA horror-ish book, right?
Yep.
But it seems like they are acting, I mean, those things kind of flip. They're very much adults when they're doing those type
They are,
things, right?
Yeah. And they have to do it over a certain period of interims. They do it for about 3 or 4 years.
Okay.
So it takes them a while, but they do have some adult help. One of the characters, I believe it's Vin, his aunt has a cabin in the woods and she kind of helps him out. So there's some adult help.
And have you always written, or how did you decide to become an author and jump in?
So yeah, my love for writing started when I the Goosebump books. I think like most people,
Yeah.
You read all the Goosebumps when you're young, and I tried to write as much as I could. I actually wrote a novella my senior year of high school, and that was my first real attempt at writing. So I got into it at that early age. I took a little bit of a break during college, and I got into other fields, and I kind of dropped it for a little while, and then I picked it back up around 10 years ago, actually, which was good. But I also had to relearn a lot of things I forgotten because, when you don't write for a while, you have to pick up stuff you forgot. Like, so I have to try really hard at editing, which is great. I'm getting so much better at it. But yeah, when I looked at that very first novella, after I hadn't looked at it for like 20 years, I just looked at it and I was like, oh, this is horrible.
Well,
it's just run-on sentences, and there's like third person perspective, first person, second in like one paragraph, and once it's like, okay, what were you doing?
Well, your high school self,
That's
right.
right.
Yeah. We'll give him credit because that's, an achievement in itself, right?
That's right. Yeah,
well,
very Stephen King-ish.
I think I saw on your list you have 2 more books, Midglow and Question 17. And Midglow seems like a little bit different from your other books, like a historical fiction.
That one is, yep. It's based in the 1940s, right around Pearl Harbor, like right when we're about to enter World War II. So yes, it's about a group of bank robbers, and they eventually discover that all of the banks they've robbed is all the money's owned by the same person. And that person winds up extorting them, basically saying like, you can either go to prison or you're going to work for me. And so the main character's name is Philip. He agrees. And so they start doing these odd, really weird jobs, and he winds up doing them in a hotel. The gentleman who owns the money is Dr. Dracoon, and he owns the hotel, but Philip starts doing a lot of mysterious projects. I don't want to go into great detail because then it ruins the story, but just a lot of strange things. And it becomes this mystery of, well, why is he here? Especially because he's European and the war's going on. And just basically him and another fellow co-conspirator named Maggie and Peter, they're the ones who finally kind of solve the mystery, being like, okay, well, why the strange experiments? Why is he got this hotel in the South, which seems very odd? And so it's more of a mystery, not quite the horror. It's more, definitely historical fiction and mystery.
Fun. And what about Question 17? I think that's also dystopian genre.
Yep. So that is the main character's name is Corey. And so basically it's a story that takes place 46 years after a very large scale world war with alien invaders. So the Earth winds up winning, and through basically reconstruction, new countries are formed and new laws and such. And Corey is in one of the countries, and he graduates basically his college. We call it the academy in the story. That's college, and he gets an internship at a secret facility called the Willow Lock, and there he scales the ladder and climbs real high and into being kind of a higher up, and he eventually becomes kind of an assistant to all the major higher up. His name is Theta. So what winds up happening is he discovers that the whole reason for the facility is to answer this list of 27 questions that the founders of the country developed all those years ago when the country was formed. And it was all based off the aliens. Like, can we duplicate their technology? Can we, drive their spacecrafts? Can we do all of this stuff? And the only question that remains is question 17. And so he basically helps. Well, he doesn't help. He actually causes destruction, but because he doesn't like what's going on. I don't want to give up too much of the story, but that's in a nutshell what that story is about. So yeah, more dystopian with aliens.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. And did you do a lot of research of like what technology would be in the future? Is it a little bit sci-fi as
It's
well?
more science fiction. I say I just kind of made it up. I didn't do a whole lot of research with that one. Maybe a little bit just to get when I do like descriptions of the spaceships, just to get a little more accuracy and not just sound like I'm making weird things up.
Watch one of those spaceship movies, just Star Trek or Star Wars or something. Right? Guardian of the Galaxy.
Yeah, for sure.
Interesting. So does that have another moral theme as well?
Maybe a little bit. I would say probably just what are you willing to deal with before you feel like yourself is corrupted a lot, and you can't go on. I'd say more of that morality part goes with the character Gwen, who is a spy for another country, and so she's has to do a lot of manipulating and a lot of just figuring out how to play the game, and while also she doesn't like having to be. She's just getting tired of being there. She's worked there for a long time, and just she doesn't like the person she's becoming. Until eventually she meets Corey, and then she realizes the mission could be over soon. So that kind of sparks her interest back into the mission.
Oh, that's interesting. Yes, it's like how do you get out of something like that once you're in it?
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
Interesting. Those all sound like super exciting titles. I love all those genres. That's right on my alley. Do you have anything planned for the future?
Yeah, I do actually. I got one project in the works right now. It's going through the editorial process through my editor right now. It's called the Cottonwood Prestige. So it's about a man who has to go back to his hometown to take care of his father, and he lives with his grandfather as well. So the grandfather and father live together. So he's going to take care of his dad who's having health issues, and they are part of a fraternity called Albatross, and they have all their alumni kind of control almost everything in the county, and then the counties around it. So it's very influential. And so while he's there, a lot of mysterious deaths start occurring and a lot of mystery around alumni who are part of that organization. And he eventually gets kind of caught in the middle of it, and eventually figures out why it's happening. So I won't give up too much, but yep, that's a story I'm working on. And then I do have another project actually after that. So,
well, very exciting. Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting to me. Do you ever feel like you miss your characters and need to write more about them, or it seems like you just write these single books and then you're good?
I mean, like I said earlier with Immune, Helen's kind of, I would say, one of the one characters who I keep coming back to, and I'm like, I really need to do a sequel. But yeah, I'm just waiting for the real inspiration to come in, like I said, because I don't want to force it. With this next book, not the Conwood Prestige, but the one I'm working on right now. Yeah, those characters I've really enjoyed. So I've just been writing. It's been a while. I've made it a little larger than probably most books are, mainly because it's about. So I usually would stick away from the whole idea of write what you know. I've always been told that write what you know, but I'm like, well, yeah, but I want to write about aliens. I don't know anything about that. So how am I supposed to do that?
Nobody knows about aliens.
Right. But being in the adolescent field that I've worked in for a long time, people are always like, you should write a book about that. You should just write a book. And it's taken me a while to come up with a story. But that's what this one is. It just encompasses like all of my experience in that field, just from a youth perspective, and then also just my perspective as a worker in the field. So.
And have you made it dark, or is it?
It's very dark.
Oh, okay.
It's dark. So basically, it's about the main character's name is Turner, and he goes through some family grief and issues. I won't go into detail, just because it'll ruin the story if I give up too much. But eventually, he gets another job in a town where the whole reason it exists is because of a facility there, and that's where he gets his job. And eventually, you find out that the people who run it and this very diabolical creature, the whole reason it was all constructed was to feed off their emotions, the youth's emotions and their trauma, and it keeps the evil force alive, basically immortal, and it just ties into that.
Oh, interesting. So another horror, sort of.
Another horror. This one's horror. Yeah, this one's horror.
Fun. Yeah, I have struggled with my pandemic book, because really in my pandemic book, they're not in the pandemic, like they're in the so their families are in the military, and they're able to send the two main characters, they're kids, they're like 15 and 17, so upper YA, but send them to like a desert community to kind of like evade the pandemic, right? And so really it doesn't take place in the pandemic, you don't get that. But I even have, and then the second book, they're fighting the government because their government doesn't want to release the cure to the rest of the world, so they're trying to get their government to do that. But I can't even wrap it up now. Like, I'm like, how do you, I know how I want to wrap it up, but I can't even go back there because I don't even want to think about 2020 anymore. So
I know, I don't blame you there.
I get too emotional about it.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the way I am too with thinking about a sequel for Immune. I'm like, well, I don't want to go in too far into that world and touch on everything I already touched on. I want it to be a whole different experience.
Right. Yeah. So I have to figure out how that happens too. So maybe we can touch back and help each other with that.
Collaborate there and come up.
Well, thank you so much for being here, Seth. Seth Voorhees, a dark fiction author. Tell us where we can find you and your books.
So you can find my books. I mean, any online bookstore. I do have a website, SethTVoorhees.com. It's all one word. So you can find my books on there. But like I said, Amazon, any online bookstore. There are some bookstores here in the local area in Rapid where you can find them. Yeah, for right now online, I'm trying to get them into major bookstores. That's a process right now, but it's getting there. So hopefully.
Well, we'll have to check back with you when you release your next books. And until then,
for sure.
Thank you for being on the show.
Appreciate it very much. Thanks for having me.
Bye.
Bye.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Finding the Magic podcast. I'm your host, author and podcaster Tricia Copeland, and I love getting behind the scenes. If you like the podcast, make sure to subscribe and stop in each week to discover new authors and books. Thanks for listening, and until next time, keep finding the magic.